Another related issues with the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Global's Bank, Mr. Elias Igbinakenzua. He's right here in the studio. Mr. Igbinakenzua, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're just with my last conversation looking at what do you think will happen? Will there be a cut? Will there be a hold at the end of MPC meeting today?
Very interesting. Let me first commend the CBN for what they've done to date. We've seen that over time, inflation is getting better, it's coming down, now down to 20.2. We've seen the exchange rate getting better. And so we believe that in the same direction, the interest rates, would improve.
So you're hoping for a cut?
We hope there should be some moderation in interest rates. I don't know the extent, but I think there should be some cuts.
So a lot of people talk about, you at Global Bank, for instance, you talk about disciplined lending. A lot of manufacturers have been crying out on the high interest rates in the country. Assuming there's a cut today, by the MPC, how reflective is it in real terms when it comes to lending to especially small businesses?
So there's been a lot of concern about high interest rates, rightly so. If you look at the margins for manufacturers, it's quite thin. And if you are to pay interest rate at 30%, you wonder how you're going to do business and make money. But first thing first, the CBN had to ensure that there was stability before battling interest rates. And now we are getting there. We are seeing that there's stability in the economy, and interest rates maybe the next focal point. But back to lending, in a high interest rate environment, lending gets a lot more, delicate. The incidence of bad loans will be higher in a high interest rate environment. So, of course, discipline is important at that point in time. As a bank, we are very mindful who we lend to. We have our criteria that you must meet before we lend to you. And we also look at your businesses to be sure that you can generate enough revenue to pay the charges. And like I always say, lending decision is collective. So we look at all parameters and say, yes, it's good to lend. But we think that with what should happen soon, there should be some reprieve, in that sector. For us to lend more to those who are doing good business.
Your mention of bad debts brings my mind back to the issue of a credit rating register. I've spoken to a couple of people who own and run credit rating companies, and they have registers, and they say the register is filling up and all of that. But how active and effective are credit rating registers to banks like you when it comes to lending?
Very important. We have three credit. We have three credit bureaus now.
Okay, credit.
We have rating agencies also, the likes of Gosto & Co, GCRO, Fitch, and all that. They point to what you're doing, whether you are following best practice. In the last few years, we've had 2 upgrades, by Augusto & Co. The last one was an A rating that we have. And within the first 5 years of operation, we're already A rated. That shows that we have disciplined approach to lending. Again, today we still have 0 NPL. I think we're the only bank that can boast of that in our country today. And it shows that we're actually being very cautious, disciplined in lending. So I think the agencies are doing a good job.
But are you using the credit register?
Register?
There's a credit register that they use to rate. Yeah, credit bureau.
Yeah. There are 3 of such, We always use them before we do any lending. But the CBN require that you check at least 2 of those bureaus before deciding who to lend to. If any name is in that credit bureau, you're not allowed to lend to them. So you have delinquent customers that are there. You go and clean up that delinquency before you can approach the bank to lend. So we always check.
So, there was a time, I think just a couple of months ago, at the stock markets, the banks were really doing well, but it seems a bit quiet now. What's going on?
Banks are still doing well.
Quietly.
Maybe quiet, but if you look at the stock market index, you see banks still, topping the charts, and interest is very high. The APIs, came in recently, and bank shares were, the preference of those APIs. And if you look at the results being posted, they're still very good. However, it's been tight on banks when it comes to regulation. We still have the highest CRR in the globe, of 50% of your deposits. So that is a big constraint for banks to lend or to make money for shareholders. So that may also affect investors' interest. Look, if they have this kind of regulation and they have to quarantine this amount of deposits, how would they, make money for shareholders? So maybe that is where you see the slowdown in the interest of bank shares.
And you still have your journey towards recap. That's first quarter of next year.
Interesting as an industry, yes. But we are past that stage. We finished ours. We've raised our money completely, and I wait to CBN to verify the capital very soon. So hopefully before the end of the year, we will publish our financials, that we are fully compliant.
But Global Bank is not listed, am I mistaken?
Not yet, not yet.
We're waiting for you.
Not yet, not yet. But we'll get there, we'll get there.
All right, so help us to understand. Recently, the CBN mandated banks to announce appointment of successor at least 6 months. What's the background? Why do we even have to talk about, was there an issue?
No, it's a normal governance requirement. If you are leaving an organization, there should be a plan, there should be a transition. It should not be abrupt, as in the guy is not today, tomorrow he's gone. So before CBN even announced it, many banks have that plan for succession. The CBN will always come and review and ask you, where's your plan? So it's there. Maybe to make it public, so that people will know that there's a transition, from an MD to another.
Yeah, because a lot of us were wondering, what's the essence of this announcement? Why was there a fault, a default, or something like that?
We're not aware of any fault or default, but CBN maybe just to re-emphasize that this is the practice.
Okay, and it's a world of fintechs now, and people still ask the question: is it competition with the fintechs, with the traditional banks, or is it collaboration?
So for us, it's collaboration all the way. The report I gave the CBN as my study in 2018, when the bank was being licensed, one of the areas that was catching for CBN was where we emphasized collaboration with fintechs as a way of enhancing financial inclusion. So it's been for us from the beginning to collaborate. The fintechs today, have made a lot of impact. In the last 4 years, fintechs have attracted about $4 billion in capital and investments to Nigeria. Today, fintechs account for about 40% of the volume of payments, especially at the retail end. And they also account for about 25% of the value of payments. So you can't ignore them. We can coexist. They have the strength, leverage technology, and then penetrate the retail segment better than you can do as a bank. But we can work together. So we have a robust IT platform, where we enable fintechs to work with us and make more impact.
Because I wanted to understand, when you talk about these transactions and investments, they're investment that otherwise would have gone to traditional banks. So where does competition start and end? Where does collaboration? Because you still have to make profits. You're in business.
I won't say would have gone to traditional banks otherwise. There are investments that are tailored for those businesses. Those who are investing in fintechs are not the same that we invest in banks. Fintechs are basically tech-driven, okay? And there are people who are tech-savvy as investors, okay? Without mentioning names, one of the fintechs did about $1 billion, at a go. Those investors didn't invest in banks at all. They prefer the fintechs. So, and maybe they have a special reason for that. Turnaround time, we don't know. Perhaps also regulation is a factor. They are less regulated. So they are freer to do business than banks are. So there's difference in...
But at this rate, regulation may be coming their way, because I know, this, the CBN is also looking their way.
You can say that again.
There's been some new introduction in the last couple of months and all of that. So we might all be heading to the same place at the end of the day.
So to be honest, that's why we are organizing the FinTech Summit. We believe that, the future of banking is not in banks working alone or fintechs alone, but we need to come together and say, how do we forge a future that we all desire? So regulation is important for all of us. Okay? The regulators have got to understand how banks operate, how fintechs operate, what are the risks that must be addressed, and what safeguards must be put in there to ensure that the financial system is safe and stable.
Well, just before we let you go, and I know this might come out dangerous because, of course, you're regulated by the CBN, but there's been talks, even you have mentioned the issue of over-regulation, and there's been talks of that even before now. Where would you like to see a change in that area, the area of over-regulation of the financial sector?
So, again, it depends on the level of discipline and compliance that we see in the industry. The CBN, this administration came in down the line about 2 years ago, and they thought that there was need to be more focus on compliance and ensure that banks are more disciplined in their approach to doing business. And they therefore had to tighten regulation. And I believe as they see banks complying and banks being more disciplined, they will learn to ease that a little bit. So it's something that is not really negative. We may feel, it's squeezing, but it's for the good of the industry.
All right, thank you so much, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Global Bank, Mr. Elias Igbinas Kenzua, for your time and your perspective. And of course, we'll be looking out for the MPC decision today. Hopefully, we'll get that little reprieve.
Thank you.
For interest rate. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.